Hey guys, it's Adam Harvey here. Hope you're all doing well, and 2021 has got off to a great start for you guys. I'm going to have to start this video with, a little bit of housekeeping and an apology really for not having uploaded much over the last few months. I've been, fortunately, pretty busy in work with a few different projects that I've been working on that have kept me pretty sort of tied up. Some sound and music stuff that I've been doing. I've also been moving house as well, so that's definitely taken up some time and slowly moving my studio up to the new house, and that's all, taking me out of the YouTube game a little bit, I guess, as I've had other things to think about. So I'm sorry I haven't uploaded that much for you guys over the last few months, but I'm hoping to change that now that I'm a little bit more settled. And I'm starting today with a library review. I was very generously given the opportunity to review a new library by a new company called RT Sonics, and the name of that library is Cinematic World. It's a sound effects library, so it can be used for trailers, TV spots, commercials and stuff, but obviously all those sounds will also work fantastically in music as well. It's all the classic kind of stuff that you need to create trailer music, production music, big, modern, epic, in-your-face sounding stuff. So lots of Braams and hits and pings and rises and stutters and crazy sound design and really, really interesting stuff going on there that I think anybody would find very useful as a musician or a sound designer or a sound editor. So let's go into this a little bit. As I just said, this is a library of design sound effects for, trailers and sort of big audio projects, and it's also great for musicians that need to layer in really impressive sound design to their projects too. The team behind it have a lot of experience, so you're looking at credits like Diablo 3, StarCraft 2, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, really top quality stuff. So this is a team that knows exactly the kind of sound you need as a musician or a sound designer or an editor to sort of really spice up your projects and make them stand out. And what I love about this library is it comes with a whole suite of designed audio effects, which are really great, really in your face sounding, as I say, pings and hits and risers and stuff that we're going to go into soon. But it also comes with the source sounds that we use to create those designed sound effects. And that's great. That's not something as a musician, usually when you buy libraries, you just you get what you get, you get really good modern sound design, but it's kind of all just in a contact bank, or it's, just in an instrument, and you kind of just have to use what you have there really. Getting the source audio is amazing, and it's something that you see happen quite a lot in the sound design world. When you buy sound design packs and libraries and things, you often get the source audio with it. But to have it as musicians as well is really, really interesting and really useful, because it will encourage you to create your own hits and rises and stutter effects and so on, which is great because as a composer it will help you find your own voice and your own sounds. And it's also really useful as well, because if you don't have a lot of experience with actually creating sound effects and sound design, this is the perfect suite of source audio for you guys to just tinker around and add all kinds of distortion and tremolo effects and crazy modulation and whatever, and see what you come up with, and you'll come up with your own really great stuff as well. As you can see, the source audio was all recorded by top of the range mics and preamps and so on, so what you're getting is a really high quality suite of sounds, a whole design pack, which is really great if you just need sounds to drop straight into projects, and then a whole suite of source stuff if you really want to sort of get under the bonnet and start designing your own sounds. So let's get into this a little bit and have a look at what you get when you get Cinematic World. You get a folder containing these 3 subfolders and some metadata information if you use SoundMiner or something like that to sort of log and keep a track of all your sound effects and be able to search for them easily when you're making music or sound design or dropping stuff into projects and so on. You'll get the license agreement here, of course. And the 3 folders are the artwork, which is, as you might expect, the artwork for RT Sonics and for the Cinematic World sort of cover as well, I guess. And you also get designed and source sound effects. So if I just pop us into Cubase, here we have the same thing again. So there's the artwork. The designed sound effects are exactly what you would expect. So it's the whole suite of pre-designed effects, covering a whole range of very useful sound design. So for example, hits, big hits, low hits, metal hits, pings, glitches up here, reverse sounds, risers, build-ups, Braams, whooshes, whoosh hits. You get some sort of interesting stuff like gear shifts and these gore punches and so on, which are creating some interesting sort of textured sound design that you can put into your project. You've got screeches and string sound, stutter risers. So if I just play you a few of these, for example, here's the metal impact. So you can hear straight away the kind of quality of the stuff you're dealing with, big in-your-face sound design. And each audio file contains usually multiple versions of the sound. So there's another version, and then a third version here as well. And that's true of pretty much all of these. So there we go. Another set of impacts, and then big cinematic hits. So, that kind of stuff, sort of big punctuation points for your music or your projects. Low hits if you need that kind of subby, really impactful stuff. Booms like this, really sort of quite distorted, impactful booms and so on. Glitches. So lots of that kind of cool sound design. Braams. Really great. Just the kind of stuff that you expect to hear in sort of world-class trailers for games and videos and films and so on. And obviously this stuff is good enough that if you're a trailer editor or something, you can just drop this stuff straight into the projects if you need to. Obviously, if you're a musician and you're creating your own music or your own sound design sort of projects, then you layer this stuff up with other instruments or other sounds in this library or other libraries. Here's some sort of patterns that you can use to repeat and loop. So that's really cool, that kind of stuff. Some whoosh hits, so great for sort of, build up into new phrases if you're making music or something, or to help transition to new scenes if you're dropping this stuff into your projects. And some interesting things like these gore punches, really kind of meaty, quite, sort of wet, slimy sounding stuff. And then lots of glitches and sequences. So that kind of stuff. And as I said, all this sounds just great out of the box. Stutters. You can totally see how this stuff would, work in sort of trailer music and epic music and stuff like that. Some strings here. Here's some subs. Everything just sounds, amazing pretty much straight away. And then you've got the source audio. And what's great about this, so all of the designed sound effects have been designed with this source audio. And that's amazing because, if you're sort of relatively new to sound design or just getting into sound design, you have a library of stuff that you can manipulate to create really, really great sound design, because all of this stuff has obviously been really well recorded, and it's exactly the kind of sound effects that you would need to create really big, impactful hits and rises and Braams and so on. So to play you a few of these things, door closing, that kind of stuff, and then blinds being pulled, car passes, so that kind of stuff, and then coins spinning, and as a sound designer or a music composer, you can layer this stuff up to create your own hits and rises and things, which will be really useful. Springs, sorry, that's metal being like a metal cover on the floor. Here's some spring pulls, toolbox rattles, vending machine, wooden ball. Yeah, I mean, really great library of stuff, and it's interesting to sort of see how that was sort of turned from its source sound into these kind of designed elements here. Just goes to show you that as you build up your sound design skills and your knowledge of sound design and sound mixing, you can create really incredible stuff from this source audio and either combine it with other sound effects or stuff that you've recorded yourself. So yeah, I really like this approach for musicians. As I say, as sound designers are probably more used to getting source audio and having a play around with that stuff. But I think musicians generally just tend to buy, contact libraries or, just kind of musical instruments that pretty much have sounds pre-designed, and they sound great. And we all, as composers, we all use that stuff to drop into our projects. But this is really exciting as a music composer, to be able to get this stuff and play around with it and see what you can come up with. And we shall be going through some of the stuff that I've just very quickly put together, as just to give you a quick idea of what you can do with the source audio. So before we go into looking at some of the source effects and kind of the things that you can do with the source effects, I thought it would be good just to do an example of how to use the design effects in a piece of music. Just sort of dragging and dropping and manipulating the audio, the designed audio effects that already come in the pack. So I've created this kind of aggressive, percussive, trailery sort of piece of music, just this sort of building, rising tension percussive track, and I'm going to play it through in its entirety first, and then we'll break it down a little bit. This is not going to be a full breakdown video of how I put it all together and everything, and this also, just for the record, isn't sort of completely mixed or mastered or anything yet, so it's a little bit rougher in the edges, but you'll get a good idea of how I use some of the cinematic world sounds in this piece of music. So I'll play it through, and then I'll do a kind of mini walk through some of the elements I used, and then we'll move on. So there we have it, just this short percussive piece. And as you can see, all this stuff in the kind of light blue is samples from the Cinematic World pack. The stuff below in the orange and purples and so on is just other libraries, mostly just things like Jaeger, a few trailer guitars, some drum kits, Hybrid Tools 3, and bits and pieces from other libraries. But the vast majority of the sound is probably coming from this Cinematic World pack, so most of the hits and Braams and things. So what I might do is just start off by showing you sort of soloing the Cinematic World sections, just having a little look at how we use some of these. So the sort of hits at the beginning are pretty much entirely Cinematic World, just supported by a couple of other bits and pieces, but here we go on their own. So as you can hear, lots of nice big beefy hits. So yeah, I've just been using, a few of these different hits. For example, the low hit here, layering that up with some of the other hits to give it some more impact and weight. Really great sounds there. And that's been layered up with the dark atmosphere track that I think I've done a little bit of processing too. I think I've just pitch shifted it so it's in key, added a sort of this thing here, the Cubase chopper, which is really great, just adds some rhythm and some texture to it. But yeah, here's the dark atmosphere track. So as you can see, just adding some texture and so on there. Yeah, and that's it's mostly just the hits and that dark ambience, and then or dark atmosphere. Then we move into some of the Braams and things supported with the hits. And then we move into this. So you can hear I've just layered up 2 Braams here, sort of pan them left and right slightly. I think they are near enough straight out of the box. Again, they've probably been pitch shifted to sort of fit the key. But yeah, there's not a lot else going on there. Maybe a bit of distortion, a slight bit of reverb. And they've been layered with the metal impact here. Just to give it that hit, and then that's combined with some of the percussion and things that we've laid over the top. But yeah, you get a sense of what's going on there. And we have these reverses, just as you can hear, just sort of introducing each hit. So that's a riser there that I've used, just sort of stretched it out a bit and added some of the chopper and distortion again, just to give it some texture and movement, because trailer music and epic music is all about that kind of rising sense of tension, and that relies so much on movement and texture. Yeah, so we move rising trailer. Then we've got a combination of the bass drop and the ping there. So one of the pings and a nice big bass drop. Sounds great. And then we move sort of back towards the hits, the reverses leading up to these big hits in the Braams again. There we go. And these are also supplemented by these bass drops here, which are quite low in the mix. But they're just adding some weight and something sort of happening in the low end there that's a bit different. Let's move on a little bit and see what we get here. So yeah, it's mostly just the same sort of things here. We have the return of the ping. We just have that riser there again, just adding some depth and some building tension. And then we have a second riser come in here at this point. So you can see here, I've literally just kind of chopped sections out and made them repeat. That you can do is sort of layer these risers and these hits and chop and change them around to create these really interesting sounds. And yeah, and then we just end sort of back at the beginning again with the dark atmosphere and some of these Braams just sort of seeing us out. So if I just play that last section again. And what I'm also doing here is using pitch. If I just show you probably here, let's have a little look what we got. Yeah, you can see I'm using rising pitch here. Just a classic, let me just show you, see if I can find it. So here we go. So if I just bring this in, just a standard waves sort of pitch changer, and you can see we're automating. there's a huge amount of that in trailer and epic and, sort of aggressive modern music. It's just adding, so much texture and excitement to things. And so, you can hear it all together. If I just take out what's the cinematic wheel stuff very briefly, just to show you what's there underneath. With the cinematic wheel stuff. So you can hear really that pretty much all the kind of major melodic sounds and bass drops and big hits and stuff are all coming from Cinematic World. And then they're just being sort of supplemented by a few extra bits and pieces here. So you have here a library of stuff that with a bit of manipulation to get things in key and to give things some extra sort of spice and weight can be used to create, all kinds of very modern, very dynamic, very sort of in-your-face sounding production music and trailer music. And so here I just want to show you guys, how you can use some of the sort of source effects to create your own, an almost limitless amount of stuff, basically. It's, this for me is the real exciting part of this library, is that, you get to dig into it and create your own sort of interesting individual sounds, and either layer them with the existing sounds in the library or just use them with other instruments, other music and so on. So it's just really great to have this option. And as I say, it's not something that you're really that used to in the music world. And I think it's something that more companies could do to really kind of encourage composers and music makers and sound designers to come up with their own individual stuff. So here, I'll just show you a few examples. Again, this is not going to be an in-depth walkthrough of how I did this stuff. Maybe I'll do that in a separate video if there's any interest in that. But I'll try and go through some of the basic stuff. Here I've just taken some of the double bass sounds. There's some aggressive sort of arco bowing of the double basses. So here's the original sounds. So that kind of really aggressive kind of bowing. And then with, nothing much really, a bit of distortion. I've used a little bit of isotope trash here. I think probably just a preset that I've tweaked slightly, and a flanger, some pitch shifter, a little bit of reverb. I've just turned it into something that little bit more sort of aggressive and individual. So you can hear these kind of quite interesting, very aggressive, distorted sounds with this kind of interesting feedback element at the end. This kind of weird sort of feedbacky thing. And I've literally just taken the original files and run them through that little effects chain and come up with a whole new bunch of different effects. And you can totally see how that kind of stuff would fit right into epic music or trailer music. And as I say, it's hardly the most inventive sound design ever done, but it's just great because straight away no one kind of has that particular version of these sounds apart from me. And of course, if you guys process them with your own sound effects and run them through your own effects chains and so on, you're going to come up with your own sort of unique take on these set of source sounds, and that's going to help sort of push your music stylistically into more unique and more individual sort of styles. Here I've done something just a bit more sort of traditional, I guess, and a bit more simple. I've taken I think it was let's have a look what it was. Did I write it down? Yeah, so just the deep metal impact here. So a pretty straightforward sound of something, sort of metal container being hit or something. And I've just pitched it down, done a little bit of EQing and added some reverb and some compression, and just come up with a kind of fairly standard sub boom. So just one of those classic sort of echoey things. It's pretty generic, but it's it's its own slightly unique take on it, which is cool. And I could process this 1,000 different ways and get 1,000 different hits of all different varieties, from sub booms and deep sub bass booms right through to really aggressive, in your face sort of sounds. And here I've done a little bit more processing, so I won't go through the whole thing, but I've layered up a whole bunch of these sounds and created something that's a little bit more elaborate. So I'll run you through this one. So yeah, as you can hear, it's a more complicated sound, more layered. It's not actually fully mixed at the moment, but you get the sense of, hey, you can put all these things together and combine, distortion and saturation and some tremolo effects and flanging and chorus and so on to create these really quite interesting layered hits and so on. And again, this one, it's unique to me. I could do a dozen of these kind of things and mangle them in all kinds of different ways, and then have my own sort of personal library of hits. And that's, if nothing else, it's just fun to do as a composer and satisfying to do. And I think importantly as well, it gives you access to a sort of new set of sounds that other composers won't be using, or that won't be quite like yours. And I think that's really, really useful and really important as a composer, to kind of keep innovating, keep trying to come up with your own sounds, keep enjoying the process of designing sounds and learning how to layer things. And this library has great source sounds to be able to do that. I think I've got another example very quickly somewhere here. Oh yeah, so here I've just taken the luggage dragging sound. If I just mute all these source effects, I might just go through the whole thing here. So that's just with the pitch. I think actually here's the original sound, if I remember. Yeah, so here's the original. It's just the sound of a luggage, suitcase or something being dragged across the floor. I've added some pitch to it. And then I've added the trusty chopper to it again to give it some movement. Where is that? So if I can bring that up, here it is. And it's given it this kind of square movement, so it's quite intense. So that gives it something, kind of like a transitional sound, something quite sci-fi oriented. I've added, again, a simple stock Cubase flanger, nothing special, which has just given it, again, that kind of cool sci-fi element. And then I've put, again, stock, I think all of these pretty much are stock. I don't know, there's a couple of other bits and pieces on there, but so here's a stock Cubase metalizer, just changed the mix and the settings a little bit. That's just added that kind of frequency, that metallic frequency high up, which gives it, again, something quite sci-fi and interesting. I've added a little bit of Panman, this is the Sound Toys. All their plugins are great, but this just gives it this really intense kind of flickering, panning sound. And then a little bit, again, of Sound Toys Decapitator. This is just one of the all-time classic saturation and distortion plugins. Just gives it some extra grit and tone. I've added a tiny bit of low air. This is a Waves plugin, which basically adds sort of low harmonic frequencies and harmonic content. Sort of adds that to the low end to give it more weight. Not doing a huge amount, really. Stock Cubase compressor, just to keep it all in check. Really not doing anything apart from just a bit of balance. Then this free gain plugin from Blue Cat Audio. I just use this all the time. It's just great. It's just a simple utility tool just to bring it up to sort of level. And then finally, my trusty Valhalla Vintage Verb. I love this reverb and I use it a lot. Just to give it, just put it in a space basically and give it something a little more interesting. So you can see, I mean, we've gone from, where is it here? Gone from the luggage to, with a little bit of work. Yeah, so you see what can be done with, relatively sort of minimal, just basically dragging in a bunch of plugins and playing with them and seeing what comes out the other side and sort of rediscovering that basic joy of just taking sounds, simple sounds, and seeing how far you can push them. And I think this is a really great approach. As I say, this is something that you see in sound design libraries with Source Audio, but musicians are probably not as encouraged as they should be to just take sounds and come up with their own sound design. This kind of approach where you have designed and Source Audio really just enables music composers to play around and enjoy the process of coming up with their own sounds and layering those with already existing stuff. And as I say, I'm not a sort of purist with this kind of thing. I use pre-designed sound effects all the time. I've got whole libraries of pre-designed hits and Braams and so on. So we all have to use them, when we're on deadlines and when we need to get high quality music done fast. But in my spare time, and when I'm sort of not working, when I'm between projects, it's great fun just to do this kind of thing and take sounds, either record them yourself or take really well recorded sounds like these ones from RT Sonics, and just check them into your DAW and just play around with them. You can just use stock plugins, you can find free ones online, you can buy plugins. It's amazing what you can come up with sort of relatively little. And as I say, I think it's a great educational tool as well, because these have all been really well recorded, and because these have been recorded by RT Sonics and a team that really know what kind of sounds they need to create high quality hits and Braams and risers and so on. You have here a pack of almost sort of curated source audio that has the capacity to be turned into really interesting sound effects. So if you're kind of relatively new to this whole sound design thing, get this pack and just get in there and just see what you come up with, and enjoy the process of layering sounds and seeing how to balance, low, mid and high sound effects and the different dynamics to create these really interesting sound, your own sort of personal hits and your own personal sound effects, basically, that you can then put into your own projects. So there we go, guys. Cinematic World by RT Sonics. Really great sound effect library full of really contemporary, really well-designed sound effects, and a whole suite of source audio as well, which I found incredibly useful and incredibly fun to mangle up and change and chop and create your own library of sound effects too. I've left a link to this website in the description where you can find out more about Cinematic World and the other libraries in the RT Sonics range. There's a lot of extra information on this website about how these things were made and so forth, and also some more demos and so on. So yeah, I hope you guys have found this review useful. If you have, do please leave me a like and subscribe, as I'll be uploading more content over the next few weeks and months. And if you guys have got any ideas on what you'd like to see or any suggestions on ideas for new content in the future, just let me know. I'd love to hear, and I'd love to be making the kinds of stuff that you guys would like to see and listen to. So I think that about wraps up this review. RT Sonics Cinematic World, I think it's a really great library. I think it's well worth checking out. So head on over to the site and see for yourself, guys. In the meantime, wish you all well, and we'll look forward to catching up in the next video. Thanks, guys.